Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leonore Einstein speaking from Los Angeles, California. I thought for a long time about what to call this show. I thought about calling it The Collapse of the Deep State, but not quite, like The Urgent End of the Deep State. But then I suddenly decided, no, that's not it. It's a sunset. It's a process. So, in the end, it's the sunset of the deep state. So I turn on Schwigen, glowing with happiness.
Deep State, bye, 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 bye. The deep state is leaving. Farewell, farewell. New intelligence operations are now being cleared. I told you that Trump would carry out a purge. Indeed, we saw that he fired about 100 National Security Council employees right before Memorial Day. It was, I think, late Friday evening. They were told, yes, you have 30 minutes to pack your things. 100 people from the National Security Council are involved, and the situation is escalating beyond just the National Security Council. You have, I think, this concerns foreigners. That was from a magazine where they wrote about this topic. Is the National Security Council dead? But now you have something else. I hadn't heard much about the TIZA group, the Agency for Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security, before. Well, 3 out of the 6 best players in this division are saying goodbye.
Let me explain the problem. When you see the agency responsible, let's say, for North Korea, comes to report, they tell the president, the vice president, those who aren't usually briefed, what, from their point of view, needs to be done. Trump is not a half-educated politician without real-life experience. He knows how to make decisions based on facts, not just on recommendations, and he doesn't like being told how to conduct policy. Besides that, he has a general vision of the world, the way he would like it to be, so that he can say, this is the direction the world should be moving in. Well, let's say I've already told you one thing to carry around. He tries to make it so that the world doesn't solve its problems, so to speak, but rather takes up clubs. But still, so to speak, he would have resorted to that before. Moreover, so to speak, he understands perfectly well that diplomacy isn't working, so he proposes, so to speak, all sorts of trade and economic things. But that's not important. In general, if something doesn't fit into what they propose, into his worldview, then he actually wants to know what they were basing it on. He wants facts, details, he asks a bunch of questions. Well, by the way, everyone says that he asks questions and they're completely unexpected. And then maybe he'll ask the presenter's opinion about a way out of the problem, or maybe he won't ask at all. And the deep state wants the leaders to do what they dictate to them. They're used to being in charge. And then, out of nowhere, someone comes along to actually tell him what really happened, and then he'll decide for himself. Terrible. The difference is that they can't fire Trump, but not only can he fire them, he actually does.
When the National Security Council comes in and gets a briefing, they're told this is how things are, this is how you should think about North Korea, about Russia, about China, about Venezuela. He replies, no, let me decide for myself how I want to think about these countries, okay? Then we'll talk. But within our government, there is a system of the deep state with its own policies that are maintained and rarely change. And he comes in and says, no, here I am, the chief executive officer. I want to make decisions. I want to change the policy, and I will do it. And so he has all these people and systems that stand in his way. And if you think about the system of James Comey, who not only stood in his way, but could also cause him serious harm. And I think this time he thinks, if I don't get away with it, I'm just not going to do it. Here's what's happening now. There's a complete purge of these people from the deep state. This is happening at the right time because I think a lot is changing and transforming right now. I'm not sure that every future president will have, let's say, the abilities or instincts of Donald Trump and so on.
Trish rightly pointed out that the next president might be less thoughtful, less able to figure things out. That's why he might start hiring assistants again.
Politicians, analysts.
By the hundreds, or maybe even by the thousands, who knows? But for now, we have Trump, who doesn't want anyone to chew over the facts and then interpret them, because when someone interprets things for you, it changes them. And usually they interpret things in the direction that the person experiencing them wants. I'm not referring to personal preferences. He made a decision, so that's the path he's inclined to follow. So as long as we have Trump, he wants to make decisions based on facts. And so, remember George Bush, right? The younger one, he was persuaded to sign $1 trillion rescue package for America. Well, it was $1 trillion, 800 billion, 850, a completely crazy amount. Later, people got used to it, but the first time it sounded like it couldn't be real. They persuaded him because, obviously, he couldn't make decisions on his own. They manipulated things for him. They showed him what to do. At the very end of his administration, he approved those 800 billion, then he left, Obama came in, and all that money was stolen right away. Naturally. Bush just handed it over to Obama and the Democrats on a silver platter. How lovely. I don't know, I even think they didn't share it with him. They were just laughing so hard at how much of a simpleton he was, a fool and a simpleton, but he's not really a simpleton. He behaved like a typical politician, following experts' advice on what to do. After careful consideration, he agreed, all right, let's do it that way. At most, Maxime asked someone else, and that person also agreed with the experts that they would all be on the same page. But let's get back to politics. Right before the 7th of October, Jake Sullivan. Well, if you remember it, Biden had what Kissinger was for Nixon, that is, an assistant for national defense affairs. His joke during the now famous interview has gained wide recognition. Because of this, how did the Biden administration bring order to the Middle East? Here he is at the head, Biden, so to speak, God's messenger, and for the coming years there will be neither war nor terrorist attacks in the Middle East. And he did this literally, 2 days before October 7th, 2 days before the 7th.
We said that we want to reduce tensions, de-escalate, and ultimately integrate the Middle East region. The war in Yemen is in its 19th month of truce. At the moment, Iranian attacks on American forces have stopped, and our presence in Iraq is stable. I emphasize yes at the moment because all of this can change. And today, the Middle East region is quieter than it has been in the last 2 decades.
The Middle East, said Sullivan, is now more peaceful than it has been in the last 20 years. This was the result of the fact that the United States leadership, the president, the vice president, the national security advisor, were receiving reports from officials in the form that those officials thought the leadership would like. Trump's approach is not that of a bureaucrat, but of a creator, a doer.
A builder was involved, but unfortunately, we know the events that followed, so it's important not to be naive about such situations. I don't think Donald Trump is naive. I believe he's quite a realist. And when he looks at his team with all their research and reports, he thinks, well, wait a minute, let me figure this out to the end. And that's why, yes, you see big changes, serious changes happening right now, when all these career bureaucrats are basically being told, yes, almost goodbye. That's why they're unhappy about it, and the more it happens, the more upset they'll be. What we are learning about who has come into the country, including what just happened in Colorado, unfortunately, we see that there are a lot of people here who are not necessarily on the side of the United States, obviously, who are here, and they are here and planning to do us harm. And that's exactly why people like Stephen Miller are so outraged that we need to deport some of these people. The Trump administration's current goal is processing 3,000 people daily, with expectations of further increases in the future.
For your information, bureaucrats are being fired, and not just by the hundreds anymore. Hundreds, even thousands of people were fired from the agency, not just 100. 1,100 officials from the Environmental Protection Agency have been fired. 75,000 federal employees have left their jobs. After accepting the offer, you leave and we will keep paying your salary for 6 months, they left. 40,000 people accepted the early retirement offer. The Ministry of Energy dismissed 700 idle employees with 1,300 more to follow. In the Department of Veterans Affairs, probably, yes, 2,400 people were dismissed. I assure you their work has not gotten worse, but better, the remaining ones. In the Ministry of Education, 2,000 were dismissed. In the Ministry of Agriculture, from 5,600 to 6,000 were dismissed, and in the tax department as well. I am happy. 7,000 were dismissed, not 70,000 hired as told. In general, that damn old lady should be fired, and in general, they should shut down this so-called internal tax office. Well, okay, we still have to get to that point, and so on and so forth. In the Ministry of Health, 5,000 have already been fired, and another 4,800 are expected. Because the minister said, we have 10,000 extra pairs of pants or skirts, who knows? Why mention these numbers, you may ask me? Just because we don't see or feel it. And the defeat of the deep state, the beginning of its defeat, has started today without a declaration of war.